Our New York Post Giants beat writer Paul Schwartz is down in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl. Giants fans, we all know all eyes are on the quarterbacks competing down there. Paul is here to break down the quarterback play. Plus, he got a chance to talk to Giants GM Joe Schoen and some other Giants front office personnel. So let's get straight into the action. Live from, I want to say Greenbow, Alabama, like from Forrest Gump, but it's it's Mobile. What's going on, Paul? How you doing, man? How's the week been so far?
We should be doing this on a park bench, right? If it was Forrest Gump, you should be sitting next to me. I should be sitting next to you. We should be doing it on a park bench, right? And
Yep.
I can just say, you can ask me about the draft, and I could just give you one line and then say, that's all I have to say about that.
Well, life is like a box of chocolates, and there's a lot of chocolates to choose from
Yeah.
if you call them quarterbacks down there. But before we start talking about the Jackson Darts and the Jalen Milroes and what they've looked like and all the other quarterbacks that are competing, you got a chance to get some good FaceTime with Giants GM Joe Schoen. Kind of talk about what that conversation was like. You guys, the media, you guys grill them about the quarterback situation. What is Joe Schoen thinking right now this week of Senior Bowl week?
Well, they're definitely thinking quarterbacks, Brandon, but it's not up to them, right? They don't have the first pick; they have the third pick, so they have to wait and see. Joe Schoen said we're going to be open to anything. The evaluation, by the process of the evaluation, we know we're going to get a good player, which is true, but they really want to get a good quarterback. He really likes Abdul Carter. I know that, the edge rusher from Penn State. Who doesn't like Travis Hunter, the receiver cornerback from Colorado? Those guys, one of those guys are going to be there for them. Do they go that route? It depends. I mean, they really believe they need to get a quarterback. They know they can't force it. And so they're going to see. It's interesting when people say, well, who did he say he likes better, Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward? What are they thinking? They have ideas right now, but they don't have it written down in stone. This is one, this is two, and here we go. This is a process. It really is. It sounds like a cliche, but it is an evaluation process where they've done all the work from the season, right? They've been to the games, they've studied all the film from there. Now the coaches get involved, and Brian Daboll's going to dig into these quarterbacks. Okay, he doesn't know who he likes best. He's going to have to dig in and see. Then they're going to talk to these guys. They talked to Shedeur Sanders at the Shrine Bowl last week in Frisco, Texas, right? They talked to these quarterbacks that are here in Mobile this week. Then they're going to go to the combine in late February in Indianapolis, where they're going to have real good, extensive sit downs with these guys, like we saw on Hard Knocks last year with Jaden Daniels and some of the other quarterbacks. Then they're going to have pro days. Then they're going to have 30 top 30 visits at their facility. It's not speed dating where you got to meet them, make a decision. Swipe right, swipe left. I guess, right? If that's what they do.
Paul, swipe left, swipe right.
I'm not really sure about that. I'm just winging it here
My
with the
swiping days are over, Paul. But yeah, you're right. You're right.
with the
You're
dating
right.
apps, right? Yeah, yeah. So it's a process, and they have to figure it out, and they will figure it out. But there's no question, best player available. We like these defensive players. They want a quarterback. They have free agency. They have the draft. Put it this way: they're going to sign one, and they're going to draft one. I believe it's a matter of who and where and when.
And I think all these, the fact that they have to pick at three, I think that's a frustration that Giants fans have because there's so many different variations on where this team can go, where Joe Schoen and these guys can go in terms of you may like a guy. This could be your number one player on the board, but he could also be the number one player on the Browns board or the Titans board who picked before them. So we've got all these different variations of what they can do for free agency, and then where does that lead them for when it comes to the draft. But we'll get into talking about the quarterbacks that are competing down at the Senior Bowl now. But the quarterback that everyone is talking about because of some viral videos of seeing Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll and Brandon Brown speaking to him in the hotel lobby or Brian Daboll giving him a little high five is Shedeur Sanders, who's not even at the Senior Bowl. They got a chance to have a soft interview with him down at the East-West Shrine game. What can you tell us about those interviews or how or what they're saying about Shedeur Sanders right now?
Yeah, I would say yes. And those videos where you see Brian Daboll dapping up Shedeur, and then they're in a little group and they're talking. Don't that's not fans look at that and say, oh man, they're targeting Shedeur. They're playing their hand. Cam Ward was not at the Shrine Bowl. Cam Ward is not at the Senior Bowl. They'll have their opportunities to meet and greet and talk to Cam Ward. They've been to games at Miami already this season. So Shedeur was there. Just the first time Joe Schoen really talked about him, he said now here's another thing. It was reported that that Joe Schoen said about Shedeur Sanders, he checks all the boxes. That's not exactly accurate. He was talking about a player whose father has been his head coach, right? And Joe Schoen said he checks all the boxes of a dad that's a football coach and the passion that he approaches the game with. That's a little different than saying he checks all the boxes as a quarterback. You know what I mean? He certainly checks boxes as a quarterback. I don't think anyone would say he checks all the boxes. He's not that kind of a prospect. Joe Schoen said he's a great kid, really good personality, football smart. So yeah, I mean, do they like Shedeur Sanders? Sure. Do they have him ahead of Cam Ward right now? I can't say that for sure. I don't know that. I don't know if they know that right now. They may have an idea, but it's not in stone. Like I said, it's written on it's written in pencil on a piece of paper, and then they're going to see how this goes. But yeah, look, Shedeur is by nature of his last name and his father and the way they ran things down in Colorado, he is the big prize, so to speak. But I think if the Giants sit at 3 and take him, a lot of people will be thrilled, and a lot of people will think they overdrafted him. Put it this way. I don't think there's any way, shape, or form that when the Giants put their draft board together and they just list them prospects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth, that Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward will be 1 or 2. They will not be the top prospects in this draft. The defensive players will be the top prospects in this draft, but we all know quarterbacks are graded on a curve.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how, again, the variations, picking at 3, how the cards are going to fall for the Giants. It's something that, but doing my research and reading all the reports, there's something that new Titans head coach Brian Callahan said about Shedeur Sanders that I think that if he's sitting there at 3 and the Giants didn't take a quarterback in free agency, that he will be drafted to come to New York. And he goes, Callahan says, you can tell he's a guy who's been in the spotlight. He knows how to handle himself. He's been paid money, so he has a financial perspective. That's New York. That's playing here in New York. So I feel as though Brian Callahan, though it could be smoke and mirrors, the Titans GM also said that they may not pass on a generational talent. I'm thinking Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. When I hear that, when they say generational in that sentence, but I think he explained what a New York Giant quarterback needs to be more in terms of the intangibles over a Tennessee Titans quarterback down in Nashville. But again, Shedeur Sanders, everyone's talking about him, and he's not even at the Senior Bowl. So let's treat this like guys who hold out at training camp. We can do our head coaches talk and be like, we're only going to talk about the guys that are here. 6 quarterbacks down there at the Senior Bowl. Before you kind of talk about the Jackson Darts and the Jalen Milroes, you talk about the Giants coaches being very much involved. Can you talk about what this process is like break it down for our fans who may not know the behind the scenes and the nitty gritty of the evaluation process down at the Senior Bowl? Can you talk about the Giants' involvement at the Senior Bowl? Then we'll get in to talk about these quarterbacks.
Well, the Giants, Brian Daboll's here. A bunch of his coaches here. Not a lot of head coaches are here in Mobile. They're just not. A lot of times after the season, typically head coaches, they do an evaluation, they do a self-scout, and then they give the staff time off. They give them time off. It's a long season. You got to unwind. And then they get together at some point, maybe like after the Super Bowl, and they start going heavy into the off-season work and the college work. Brian Daboll gave his staff some time off, but some of them are here. Some of them are here and working. Daboll's here watching practice. His offensive coordinator, Mike Kafka, is one of the head coaches here. Joel Thomas, the running backs coach, is a coach here. James Ferenz, Giants assistant offensive line coach, is here coaching the offensive line. So, and Joe Schoen said he thinks that gives them a real advantage. Their coaches that are here are on the field with these guys. They're meeting them. They're in the meeting rooms with them. They're seeing how they learn, how they study, kind of getting them behind the scenes. So they feel it's an advantage. They do. And they did very well in the draft last year, taking players from the Senior Bowl and some from the Shrine. So, they hope to continue that. This process, like I said earlier, this is not the start of it, but the combine is a huge component in all this. Huge. That comes next. It was interesting. Joe Schoen was explaining to us for these interviews, they were in a room with, because you can't do it. There's only a finite amount of time. There's 32 teams. It'll take forever. So they're in a room with 3 other teams, and it's not a random sampling. The Giants were in a room, a quiet room it was the Giants, the Dolphins, the Saints, and the Bills. You say, okay, well, that's an odd grouping. Well, Joe Schoen worked for the Dolphins, so he has connections there. Joe Schoen worked with Jeff Ireland, who was with the Saints. And Joe Schoen obviously came to the Giants from the Bills and has strong ties to them. So he said, our group is, those teams kind of see things the same way, do things the same way. So it was a good group to be in a room with. We kind of know how we want to operate things. Obviously, the Giants are not going to be in a room with the Eagles or the Commanders or the Cowboys, right? But I thought that was an interesting little behind the scenes look at, you don't tell any other team what you're doing, but you do have to work together sometimes in this process.
Yeah, Joe Schoen was, when he was a scout with the Miami Dolphins, he's one of the reasons why they took me, claimed me off waivers when I got released by the Giants that second year. He was a scout down there, and Jeff Ireland was the GM. I think Brian Gaines at the time was the assistant GM, and Parcells, I forget what his role was, but Parcells was heavily involved with the organization back then. So I'm loving this process, and I'm loving how you're saying there's so many Giants coaches down there, because last week when we spoke with Tyrone Tracy Jr. and he came in studio, he had said that the rookie class, they all have a certain trait or personality of Brian Daboll. He said they're all kind of wiry. They all kind of like have that fire within them, and they have that mental toughness. So I'm seeing this as them making sure they double down on the draft class that they had last year and bringing in, one, guys that can play right away, or as many guys that can play right away, like we saw from last year's draft class, but 2, guys that can handle the coaching, the type of coaching that's here. Because when we talk about Brian Daboll, we don't really hear that many dust-ups and all when it comes to the players with his style of coaching, how he can be in the face. Yes, he had the beef with Wink, but those are two grown men. Those are 2 alphas going back and forth. And as a coach's kid, Paul, I know how catty coaches can get from when they're on staff and they're around each other 24/7. Page 6 Studios right next door. It's like the Real Housewives of NFL or college coaching, because it should be its own reality show. But now that we got that out of the way, we got the evaluation process. There's 6 quarterbacks that are down there. We're not going to talk about all 6. There's Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Riley Leonard of Notre Dame, Tyler Skull from Louisville, Seth Hennigan from Memphis, and Taylor Elger. He's from Canada. Sorry to butcher your name, man. I know I spent time in Canada, so that should be able to roll off my tongue. But I guess we'll talk about this top 3. Jackson Dart's been making a lot of noise, and Jalen Milroe. Let's just talk about the 2. They're high on everyone's boards. I'm hearing a lot of good reports about Jackson Dart and the opposite when it comes to Jalen Milroe. Who do you liking so far out of these 2, Paul?
Yeah, I wrote about Jackson Dart in the New York Post on Thursday, and look, he's got that Ole Miss connection. I think Jackson Dart will end up being number 3 quarterback on the Giants board. Okay, that's my impression, that it would be Ward, Sanders, Dart, or Sanders, Ward, Dart. I think Dart will be number 3. That's my guess when this whole thing comes through. He's look, he was a fairly prolific quarterback in the SEC at Ole Miss. Started his career at USC. Ole Miss, as we know, Archie Manning went there. Eli Manning went there. Jackson Dart told me that when he got to Ole Miss, he became very close with not only Eli Manning, with Archie Manning. He said Archie would would reach out to him, the whole Manning family. He would text him before games, Archie, wishing him luck. I talked to Eli last week at an event, and Eli said, Jackson Dart participated in the Manning Passing Academy. He knows him, he likes him, he follows Ole Miss more than any other school. That's his alma mater. He kind of gave him his stamp of approval. Not that he was saying he's better than the other guys. He's just saying he was more familiar with him. Now it's interesting. Dart here had trouble with handling the snap under center. Okay, in the last 2 seasons, Brandon, he went under center and took a snap 9 times. He was in the shotgun like 450 times, and 9 times he was under center. So guess what? You come here, they want you under center, right? That's what the scouts want to see. Yep. You're working with centers who you've never worked with before. And oh, by the way, you're working with centers who, for this purpose in Senior Bowl, are guards who have to snap. So you got a lot of stuff going on. He said, look, I'm fine with the snap. I played in a wing tee in high school for 3 years. I know how to take a snap from center, but that's just something. You know what I mean? Is it a big deal? No, but look, these college guys are different. He ran somebody told me his offense at Ole Miss was kind of like a 7-on-7 deal, the spread. And so it wasn't 100% NFL ready. So, they have to see about that, but he's 6'2", 220. He threw the ball well here, I thought. He is very different than Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe is, and it's funny because he was very, very, I tweeted a picture of him signing autographs. He's from just down the road, right? He played in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, right? Now, they didn't have a great 2 years with him there. But, he's a local guy as far as where he went to college. Mobile's not that far away. He's an incredible athlete, and he can make some great throws, but he is very inconsistent. Yeah. He's not an NFL passer right now. That's just all there is to it. He makes one throw. Whoa. I mean, he's got the arm strength. He makes a throw and you say, wow, that's good. And then he makes a couple of throws. What is he doing? He missed the guy by 10 yards. And you don't get to see a lot of the real athleticism here. They're not taking off and running. It's not, it's team drills, but they don't want the quarterback just taking off and running. That doesn't really help anybody. It's not like getting ready for in the preseason or something like that. It's just different. They want you to throw the ball, make the throw. If the guy's not open, just throw it. If it's an interception, it's an interception. So we don't see his really amazing qualities, which is athletically. But you know what? First of all, Jackson Dart, I wrote about Jackson Dart, and people are commenting on social media saying they can't take him at 3. They're not taking him at 3. They're not taking Jackson Dart at 3. The last time I checked, there's a lot of rounds in this draft. You can take him in the second round. You can trade up into the first round and get him if you really love him. They're not taking him at 3. They're not doing it. But they need to get a quarterback in this draft. If the first 2 guys are gone, I don't think you want to trade up from 3 to 2 to get one of them, because the team that's up there probably wants him. So look, there's a lot of moving parts. They don't have the first pick. I think Dart is more of an NFL ready guy right now. I don't know if he's 100% NFL ready, but Jalen Milroe's not. If you draft him and you play him, it's a disservice to him and to your organization. He may be a guy now. He may be a guy you can play as a rookie in a package. Okay, you can put him in at the 5-yard line, and he may just run it into the end zone for you. And if you stack the box against him, he may be able to just throw one, over the line to the tight end. But he's not ready to play in the NFL right now, and so you have to look at him that way.
Yeah, when and people, I tell people all the time, like if Jackson Dart comes out of there, and one of his biggest knocks or one of his biggest things of red ink is, okay, he struggled with taking the snap under center. That's not something that's going to make him fall drastically down in the rankings, because, I mean, he's going to identify what he needs to work on coming out of here, and he's going to be taking snaps under center when he goes and he works out with his QB coaches and all leading up into rookie camp. At rookie camp, and as he gets to training camp, they're going to be having him taking snaps under center 24/7. So it's not like before he gets into a preseason game, it's like, oh, this guy hasn't taken a snap under center before. My only thing is, Paul, when it comes to this evaluation process with him, I love the fact that he's an Ole Miss guy. I love the fact that the great relationship with the Manning family, and, Eli has said that he's willing to lend his expertise to the Giants when it comes to the quarterback evaluation. I just don't want the Giants to make that mistake again in terms of a quarterback with all these heavy Manning connections. It's like Daniel Jones 2.0 all over again. And I think
It's not. It's not. He's not. He's
no,
nothing like. He's no. He's nothing like Daniel Jones as a player. And look, don't forget, this is Joe Schoen didn't draft a quarterback. You know, that was the previous regime that
yep,
did that. You know what I
yep,
mean? That drafted Daniel Jones. This is not Joe Schoen. Look, and look, I wrote it last week. You know, Eli said yes. They asked me to help, but that's not. He's not. You know, if they ask him, you know, watch some tape here for Eli. Look, that's not Eli's job. You know,
yep.
Eli's everything else is Eli's job because he has more jobs than any 10 people we know,
Yeah.
right? But his job is not, you know, it's funny. He was asked last week, we asked him, you know, do you ever think you're going into coaching? He said, no, no. You know, Eli, what was the thing about Eli Manning, right? First one in the building,
Last one
last one
out.
out of the building, right? I said that to Eli and I said, Eli, I know the only problem with that is you were the first player in the building. And when you got there, all the coaches were there. And you were the last one out of the building. And when you left, all the coaches were still there. He said, yeah, those guys work hard. Eli doesn't need it. He's got all the money. He doesn't need to coach.
Yep.
He doesn't, you know, people say, oh, he should be the quarterback's coach. He's no, Eli's doing the Manning cast. Eli's pitching this and that. Eli's going to be down to Super Bowl, with corporate sponsors. Eli is a brand ambassador with the Giants, right? And does stuff with the Giants. Coaching is heavy lifting. Your father's a coach,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
There's this much glamour, right? And there's this much everything else. That's not Eli Manning. So so he's not making the decision. He's not making the decision.
Yep.
Archie Manning's not making the decision. Joe Schoen and Daboll are making the decision.
And a lot of Giants fans, well, all the Giants fans are looking like this decision has to be right. And now that
It
we're,
does
now
have to
that
be
we,
right. Yeah.
and I'm glad you said it because, like you said, Milroe, Dart are not two guys that they're going to take at 3. We're talking
No.
about. So this is again that part of that that the variations or how the cards could fall. Because if you draft one of these guys, that means you got somebody in free agency. That means, you made a play, you made a strong play for a guy that you think can come in and be your QB1 while you have time to develop one of these guys. I look at the Jackson Dart being the Bo Nix of this class, where it's, all right, someone is going to identify that this kid can run my system. This kid from day one, I can throw all this terminology at him. I can put him through the fire to get him as game ready as possible. Have a really strong defense around him. Have playmakers surrounded around him, and have this kid on a rookie deal and see what happens. When it comes to a Jalen Milroe, the fact that he's not able to scramble and use that athleticism right now, this is giving evaluators, quarterback coaches, offensive coordinators a chance to see, all right, how can I work with what he struggles with right now? Can I be better? It's almost like the Lamar Jackson, Todd Monken situation. Can I come in and make him into a better passer without taking away what he does best? So for Jalen Milroe, as you can calm down, because everyone's saying like how he throws a beautiful deep ball, but he struggles on the intermediate routes. And I'm going back and forth with people because they're like, no, he needs to be taken in the first round. Look how great that deep ball is. Those are low percentage passes. You don't just go out there and just chuck it up, throw deep balls the entire time. You're going to have to be able to sustain a drive and move and play and move the chains against teams that play 2 high safeties deep and try to keep everything in front of them and in front of the defense and make a quarterback beat him with his arm. So I look at what Jalen Milroe is going through right now. It's, if you can obviously put your speed on tape during the Senior Bowl game, obviously, but you're going to have to be able to make some throws that maybe 4 or 5 offensive coordinator or quarterback coaches that may not be there or maybe watching from home can look at and be like, you know what? I can fix those mechanics. I think I can work with this kid, because the last thing you want to do is take a chance on him and draft him. Everyone was talking about Malik Willis. Remember Malik Willis out of Liberty? The Titans went and drafted him, and he did nothing with the Titans. He's the backup in Green Bay right now. So it's as these tiered quarterbacks that we're talking about, people have to understand that they're not drafting them to be day one starters right away. these are guys that can be developed and hopefully, maybe be a Kirk Cousins type guy that you brought somebody in, you drafted RG3, but at the end of the day, who had the better career? Like, who's still playing right now? Paul, anything else you can give us about the quarterbacks, the evaluation? Anyone kind of jumping out to you that you like?
Well, you know what? I mean, the one guy who's not here is we haven't talked about that much is Cam Ward, who might be the best one of them all, right? He might be the best, quarterback. He's going to be one or two on most teams' draft boards as far as quarterbacks, and he's a little more of a mystery to me because he's a guy. One scout told me, well, and it's known. I mean, he was a 0-star recruit.
Yep.
Coming into college, and what does 0-star mean? 0-star means that most analysts who gave him 0-star say he has zero chance to make it to the NFL. Zero, not 1-star, 2-star, So we know he went to Incarnate Word. We know he, went to Washington State. Last year at this time, he wanted to enter the draft.
Yep.
And draft people said, don't do it. Don't. You're going to be a third-day pick. So he goes to University of Miami and has a terrific year there, and now he vaults up the board. So, he's a guy who is going this way. He is going up. You know what I mean? Jaden Daniels 2 years ago was not a big-time prospect that people said, this guy's going to be a high draft pick and a terrific NFL player. He was skinny. He ran around. And, his last year at LSU vaulted him into incredible prominence. So, is there a little bit of that with Cam Ward where it took him a while to get his traction, and once he got it, he became a big time prospect. So, Joe Schoen spoke very little about him. Like I said, he was not at the Shrine Bowl. He's not at the Senior Bowl. They'll do all their stuff now. So he's a guy I want to see. When people start meeting with him and talking to him and breaking him down, where he kind of goes up and down on the charts here, and look, it's a long process. Brian Daboll likes it. He dug in hard last year with these quarterbacks because, as we know, that they would have liked to trade up for one of them, for Jaden Daniels or Drake May. They couldn't do it. Here's what I will leave you with, okay? Remember when Bo Nix was drafted, everyone was stunned. Whoa, he's drafted 12, right? He thought he might be a second-round pick. He was drafted number 12 overall. And everyone said when the Broncos drafted him, whoa, Sean Payton drafted him. Sean Payton knows quarterbacks. That's going to be a good place for him, right? Boy, if Sean Payton is taking a chance on him, he must know something. That's fine. Sean Payton, I covered Sean Payton when he was the offensive coordinator, and before that, the quarterbacks coach with the Giants with Jim Foster. Okay, I know Sean Payton. He's terrific. But the Giants hired Brian Daboll for a lot of those same reasons, quarterbacks, offense. So the Giants have to feel, and don't forget, they kept Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll because, ownership feels they can figure it out how to make this team better and how to get the quarterback. So the Giants have to look at this, and Schoen and Daboll have to look at this and saying, we are just like Sean Payton. We can identify a quarterback. We can bring him in. It will be a quarterback-friendly system, and we know how to develop him. So that's why Brian Daboll's in the league, really, because he can do those things. He's not a defensive coach. He's an offensive quarterback guy. So the Giants have to feel that's our advantage. A lot of fans feel, no, he doesn't know what he's doing. But we have to see. He's got to, and Daboll thinks he's good at this. Yep. Identify the quarterback, target him. If you can get him, bring him in, develop him. Sean Payton did an unbelievable job with Bo Nix. Bo Nix also played in 60 games in college for all these different offenses. So it's a little different thing, but you bring him in. It's not bringing him into you're handing him to a defensive coach and a new offensive coordinator. It's Brian Daboll working with him, and it's probably going to be Mike Kafka working with him, right? Unless he gets the Saints head coaching job. So, the Giants have to feel we bring him in. We got the support system in place. Let's see if it works out. It's imperative, right? These guys have to hit with this quarterback and have to start winning some games here.
And everything you just said, Paul, about Brian Daboll's involvement and who he is as a quarterback evaluator and quarterback maker, I think that's what kept him the job. When Mr. Milroe was talking to you guys, the media, and he was talking about how they had that meeting on Friday before that last game, and he said that they kind of had a long meeting and they were talking about their plan and the future. I feel as though Brian Daboll kind of stepped up and was like, I want to be involved with this quarterback process this year. You saw on Hard Knocks last year, I wanted to go grab Jaden Daniels. We wanted to trade up to try and get Drake made. The Patriots didn't bite. Commanders weren't going to bite for Jaden Daniels. Now he's looking at it with that third pick. I'm in position, or we feel as though we are in position to maybe grab one or two of these quarterbacks, the Cam Ward or the Shedeur Sanders. But on top of that, I think that he was probably like, look, if these two who are the top tier quarterbacks or the tier one quarterbacks of this class aren't there, I also want to be involved with the evaluating the tier two guys to see if that I could do something with them and we can grab a steal of the draft, a second round pick or a third round pick and a quarterback who can play here for 5+ years. So I think Brian Daboll, and you talked about his involvement in being there, and then we've seen all the videos, him high-fiving Shedeur and stuff. I think that's going to, in terms of the public image, I think he's doing all the right things right now in terms of Giants fans and trying to win the Giants fans back over. Look, I'm involved in this process. Just let me cook. Let me cook. Now, his final evaluation is going to be how these quarterbacks turn out, and whatever preseason is going to be huge when it comes to whoever they draft or whatever. But I think Brian Daboll kind of like just watching and seeing reports and seeing these videos, I think that he's the guy that kind of maybe stepped up, jumped on that grenade during that meeting and was like, look, Mr. Mara, Joe's done a great job bringing in, XYZ. We got the last rookie class, but let me be involved a little bit more. Let me get my hands on. Real quick, Paul, final thought. What's next for you?
Next is come home from Mobile and then go to New Orleans for the Super Bowl. I know I'll see you in New Orleans, right?
Yes,
I mean, it's it's a long week in New Orleans. It's the Eagles. We're very familiar with the Eagles, right? And them going for that Super Bowl. And Saquon, there's going to be a lot of Saquon coverage and a lot of Saquon talk.
Yep.
And by the way, you have a three-peat, which has never been done before. So, people, I thought it was ridiculous when people say, "Oh, this is the Super Bowl nobody wants to see," right? We wanted the Bills, a fresh face. I don't think anyone wanted the Commanders. Other than the people who like the Commanders in Washington. The Commanders aren't a big national team. This is not the Super Bowl we want to see. You know what? These are the two best teams, right? These are the two best teams. Mahomes going for a three-peat with Brady and Bart Starr and Staubach and Terry Bradshaw. No one's ever done three-peat. The Eagles, tremendous storylines for us in New York. So I think this is a Super Bowl a lot of people will want to see. So that's next for me. And, it's always a privilege and interesting to be at the Super Bowl. So I'll see you down there. And I have one word of advice for you, okay? If you're going to be wearing a nice dark outfit and you eat one of those beignets and all that powdered sugar comes onto that nice black sport jacket, it's a bad look, Brandon. It's those beignets, you gotta eat them in a certain way so all that powdered sugar doesn't explode onto your shirt because it's a bad look. Okay, that's a bad look.
I'm not a big beignet guy. I'm going down there for the gumbo. I'm going down there for the gumbo and all that Creole food down there. But safe travels, Paul. I'll see you next week. Thank you guys for watching. Keep tuning in with us because we got so much draft coverage on the Giants. Thanks for watching Blue Rush.